are playing Champions now. It's a very Swedish game, as I'm playing from my home on the eastern side of Sweden, and Ulf and Ulla are playing from their residences in Goteborg, which more widely known as Gothenburg, on the western coast. And we made the recording that I'm about to present actually a couple of months ago. It took a little while to get things rolling and schedules and so on. At the time of what you're about to see, Ulf had the PDF as a backer of the Kickstarter, but he hadn't really gone through it in any way, and Ola didn't have anything about the game at all. So it was actually a pretty long conversation of kind of an interrogation of, what on earth is this? And, I hate superheroes. Why are we playing this? Well, almost. And so a bit of a discussion. The important thing for you to see, is how the two of them kind of processed the idea that there is no fixed notion of superheroes or superhero comics, and how we're going to kind of evolve them through a set of organized steps as we go along. That's not even really filling out, a form or checking off boxes or anything of that kind. Much more dynamic. Well, anyway, it's fun to watch them, process that. Some of the phrasings that came up, some of the questions that are asked, I think are well worth a person's time in learning more about the game and watching people enjoy themselves as they go through it. What I gave them was, powers reach into outer space and into inner space. And then the second statement was a little bit obscure and thematic. It was like the greater good, the greater evil, which is which. And the players were kind of like, what on earth am I looking at? And I said, I don't know, make something up, make a superhero. The game that we came up with through the steps that we went through next is set in Gothenburg. And the two characters are as pictured in the intro that you just saw, the Havsmannen, played by Ulf, who's an aquatic Cthulhuid, guy living out there in the archipelago off of Gothenburg in very, very traditional Swedish circumstances. And then we also have the cosmonaut, who is an alienated and neurotic school teacher deep in Gothenburg, who has happened upon this psychedelic, tattered cosmonaut suit, which sort of mystically envelops him, and he goes and is super heroic in it. And we settled upon how they were a bit of a partnership. They knew each other and compare notes on things, and a bit of a super duo in and around Gothenburg in a semi-cryptid way. I mean, they were known and people, knew they existed, but they exactly where they did and didn't, do things sort of interplays with rumors and stuff like that. They're a little shadowy in a psychic way. So that's kind of neat, and I hope you enjoy the recording. It's a interesting look, at how the game is done and how it proceeds, and what has occurred is quite excellent. I'm really, really enjoying the game that we're several sessions into, and I hope you'll enjoy it with me after taking a look at how we got started. I give the two statements to the players, and independently, each one comes up with a character. Mm-hmm. And this goes against all of the conventional wisdom of role-playing. The conventional wisdom says we sit down and we debate every detail as we go for every single character. And I say, don't do that. Go home. Take the two statements, and they include a location as well.
Yeah.
The location is supposed to be somewhere that somebody knows really well in the group.
Mm.
And so you have the location, and then you all go home and you each make your characters. Only then, when they all come back together, now we know what genre we are looking at. Now we know. And of course, it's a new thing. It's not conforming to a genre. It's creating its own spin. And so now we know whether they are a government group. We look at them and we say, oh, look, it makes the most sense for you to be a government group. Just look at these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or we look at them and we say, oh, obviously you're a band of outlaws. We get it. Okay. I mean, just look at them. And so the point is that many of the specifications that we call genre, many of the specifications that we call theme, are not going to happen until everybody comes back together and we are looking at the characters. So if you, for example, were, as Ulf implied, you would obviously be bringing in surrealistic elements and neurotic elements. Sounds like you, right, Ola?
Yeah,
Sounds
like me.
Exactly. So you would bring in your character with all these surrealistic and neurotic elements, and either you would be a fun oddball among all of them, or a couple of other people have done the same, and now we have some sort of strange group. Right? And that's okay, because now we know what our group is. We have not agreed beforehand to make them a government group. We have not agreed beforehand to make them a family. But now, looking at them, someone says, oh my God, look at them. They're obviously a family.
Yeah. I like that. From a creativity point of view, it also brings a kind of, if we do that, what you're saying is that we create our characters separately without interacting and
but
try
we have
to
the
build.
two statements.
Yeah, we have the statements, and that's quite a broad framework for things. To be. And then you use that kind of tension and the potential discrepancies and I mean, it could be things.
Think about it. Did I not just describe the way every great superhero group comic looks?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
I mean, after all, look at The Watchmen, where everybody comes back with all of their very normal human characters, but somebody walked in with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it looks, in retrospect, it looks like the genius author. It looks like the genius author, set that up. But in the way we play, they didn't set it up. Now we know.
No.
That was our inspiration.
I was referring to Mark Millar's Jupiter's Legacy.
Right, I have not read it.
Read it. Not only because it's Frank Quitely, that is my absolute favorite.
So the statement methods that I'm talking about solve all of the problems of what are powers and what is the group and why are we here and all that shit. And so since each character automatically comes with a supporting cast and a set of already decisions that are already in place, since that has already happened, the Game Master now has at least 20 characters assigned to them. So the Game Master has received an immense amount of setting right now. Remember,
do you have that many connections?
You would be surprised. If you want to, you can make a. Well, you see, there are two kinds. There are the kinds who are quantified on the sheet, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
And when you make a champion's character, they typically are going to have a pretty broad set of people in both of those. And so, therefore, you have some enemies and you have some relationships that are more positive or more difficult. The definition of a dependent non-player character is that their problems are your problems. So, therefore, you have a set of very interesting issues. And that comes with each character. So you automatically have this enormous amount. Now, of course, you, the Game Master, are probably also inspired by the statements, and you are coming up with some villains and some things going on in this location. Believe me, if you are handed a city that you don't know very well by one of the players, and they say, let's set it in this city, and you go to the internet and you start looking at the history and geography of that city, you're going to come up with a supervillain really easily. It's too much fun. It's too easy. or you look at the political history of the city like me, and you will instantly come up with the worst person in the whole city, who's probably running it. But it's very easy to see, and the social circumstances of the city. Then somebody might say, well, I want to play a homeless guy. And then they ask that person who provided the city, they say, where would the homeless guy be? And he says, oh, you would be living in this area. And so we have a really good idea of place. They have provided a great number of characters. The game master has also brought in their own inspirations, and it's very, very, very easy to start playing.
Explain situations.
Yes. You have 100 points to build your character's situations. And there are several different categories of them. You can only have 50 points from each category. So some of them involve the character's identity. Some of them involve their dependent non-player characters. Some of them involve their enemies. Some of them involve limitations or vulnerabilities based on their powers. But you should do that first. We should be, or at least get most of them started first, even if you don't finish them, so that you have an idea of what kind of situations, literally, your character could be. When we look, if you turn the page, we see your character for the first time, it's essentially guaranteed that you will be in one of those situations. One of those, or in a situation in which the thing on your sheet is gaining your attention. So that's how that works. Do you have any questions about that?
So you have the situations, and then you have you kind of build your characters by adding points and buying stuff, and then you are finished, and by that, like going back and forth. Do you actually say to your players, go home and fill in
Yes,
the
I do.
Points? Yeah.
Even the ones who protest, even the ones who protest and say, "Aren't we need to do it together."
Mm.
We need to do it together, and they have the A team in mind. They need the big guy, the fast guy. They need their Shadowrun team, is what they want.
Yeah.
And I say, fuck your Shadowrun team. No good superhero group was ever built like a Shadowrun team.
But how important are the statements then?
They are.
Just
it's a matter of they're important because we are all working from them.
Yeah. Okay.
They are not a detailed Bible for us to stay inside.
No. So we it's a kind of a stepping stone to take the first step, just to get inspired. Then in that case, you can give me that, and I would work from that.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will protest if you get something that is not inspiring. But I don't think so.
No pressure.
No, not inspiring, but
if it's stupid, we'll let you know. That's right, what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good with that. I have a question. Why don't we just play this game then?